Hi everyone, today I will be analyzing a conflict from Dance Moms, specifically season 4, episode 7, Big Trouble in the Big Apple. The episode features a major confrontation between Abby Lee Miller, who is the dance teacher, and the dance mom, Kelly Hyland, and her children are Paige and Brooke. Using the concept of conflict escalation, I will show how their conflict developed over time and why eventually resulted in a physical altercation. First, I'll provide some background on the conflict, and then I'll explain the conflict escalation and the escalatory spiral. Next, I will apply the concept to specific moments in the episode, and then lastly, we'll discuss the broader implications of this conflict. So Abby and Kelly have had a long history before this episode. Kelly had danced for Abby when she was young, and Kelly eventually left dance to go do cheerleading, and Abby resented her for that. And so later on, when Kelly had kids and her daughters wanted to go dance, she took them to Abby's dance studio. And over time, Kelly felt that Abby treated her daughters unfairly and consistently favored other dancers. And Abby viewed Kelly as just being overly emotional. Because of that history, their relationship already contained a great deal of tension before the events of this specific episode. The concept I'm applying is conflict escalation. Conflict escalation occurs when a disagreement becomes more intense instead of being resolved. A key part of this process is escalatory spiral. This happens when one person's negative behavior causes a negative reaction from the other person, which then leads to an even stronger response. Rather than solving the problem, both people unintentionally make the conflict worse. So the first example occurs when Abby criticizes Kelly's daughters. Kelly responds defensively, and she believes the criticism is unfair. Instead of addressing Kelly's concerns, Abby doubles down on her criticism. And this creates a cycle where both women become increasingly frustrated and neither feels heard. And this is the first clear example of an escalatory spiral. The second one, another important moment occurs when Abby introduces a new dancer named Kalani at the bottom of the screen. Kelly interprets this as another sign that Abby does not value her daughters. Her reaction reinforces Abby's belief that Kelly is difficult to work with. As a result, both women become more hostile towards one another, and the conflict is no longer about one specific issue, but it becomes about their overall relationship. As the tensions keep rising, the conversation shift away from the treatment of Kelly's daughters. Instead, Abby begin to attack each other personally, and this has happened before where Kelly will say comment about Abby's weight, or Abby will say something about Kelly's mom. They get to a point where they hate each other that much that it becomes very personal attacks, and they know exactly how to do it because they know each other very well. This is very significant because once people stop discussing the issues and start attacking each other, it becomes much, much more difficult to resolve, and the conflict becomes emotional rather than just productive. So this is one of the breaking points of the episode. The backstage confrontation is the climax of the conflict. Years of frustration combined with events of this episode. Basically, Kalani was brought in to do a duet against Kelly's daughter, Paige, and nobody knew about it. It was a super secret duet, and once everybody found out about it, they were already on stage competing it. It was too late. Spoiler alert. Kalani's duet had beaten Paige's duet, and obviously Kelly had her reasons to be very, very frustrated with that. But neither Kelly nor Abby attempt to de-escalate the situation. Instead, their reactions continue to intensify until the argument becomes physical. And this represents the final stage of the escalatory spiral.
We don't want you to go. The girls, you guys don't want to go.
Obviously, she wants someone who has never danced here take both of my kids' place.
No, the kids want to dance.
No,
Brooke,
she
she wants to
doesn't.
dance. No,
Did you just sit here and say that my daughter looks miserable, so maybe we should put Kalani in her place?
No, I never said
Yes,
that.
you most certainly
No,
did.
I didn't, dingbat. Listen, I said, Brooke, is your mother
Get
speaking
your
for
finger
you? Do you
out
want
of
to be
my face.
Girls, out the room.
Yeah,
Girls,
you would eat
out the
me.
room. Out the room.
Get away from me.
Out the room. Girls, out of the room.
Who do you
Right
think you
now.
are?
Girls, out of the room. All of you,
No,
out
you're
of the
nuts.
room. Now, out of the room. Maddie, you too. All of you, out of the room. No, all of crazy. Out of you.
No, I'm not crazy. You're eating my face.
Gotta get out of the room. Girls, gotta get out of the room. No, absolutely not. You've got to call the police right now.
Go ahead. You were coming at me.
I was not looking. I was over this way. That's ridiculous. You know what? That's ridiculous.
Several factors contributed to the escalation. First there was the history and the unresolved conflict. Then, both of these women became defensive rather than listening to each other. And then each person assumed negative intentions from the other. These factors made it difficult for either side to break this cycle and for either side to truly listen to the other person. Although this conflict comes from reality television, the same pattern appears in everyday life. Escalatory spirals occurs in families, friendships, workplaces, romantic relationships, especially in romantic relationships. And even I can connect to this one in some of my relationships. Seeing that pattern, recognizing it, and how to resolve it makes it much easier to deal with. These examples demonstrate the importance of active listening and addressing issues before they grow into something much, much larger than what they are. In the end, the conflict between Abby Lee Miller and Kelly demonstrates how conflict escalation works in practice. Their disagreements followed through an escalatory spiral in which person's reactions intensifies based on the other person's behavior. Ultimately, years of unresolved tension and personal attacks led to a complete breakdown in the relationship. And this fight was the reason that Kelly, Brooke, and Paige were asked to leave the show and the team. I think this is a really great episode to watch, especially for a class like this. I think it's a very good example of the beginning of a conflict and then the end of a conflict. Not all conflicts are going to end good. Not all conflicts are going to end bad, but it's the way you respond to them and how you handle them. I really thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys go actually watch this episode and watch the show. It's very great, but this is definitely a standout moment in the show.